Welcome to IVF This, episode 64, Boundary Setting. Welcome to IVF This. I'm your host, Emily Ginn. I'm a mother to two beautiful and feral boys. I'm married to my favorite person in the world. I'm a social worker, a life coach, and an IVF warrior. I'm here to teach you how to manage your mind and emotions during your IVF journey, to break free from anxiety and regain control of your life, even in the midst of infertility. I'm going to teach you to say IVF this to how we think about, talk about, and experience infertility. Let's go. Hello, my beautiful friends. I hope you're all doing so well today. I'm doing so well myself, and I'm excited to talk with you today about boundaries. Boundaries are actually one of my favorite things to discuss. I had the very good fortune of being taught about boundaries very early in life. And so it's always kind of been a natural thing for me, but I completely understand that that's not the case for most people. I think those that know me well would actually say that I have no trouble saying the word no. In fact, one of my favorite quotes that has been attributed to so many different people, I can hardly keep it straight, but I think the actual first person to say it was the author Anne Lamott, who is a writer. She's a political activist. She's a teacher. She is all of these things, but she said, no is a complete sentence. And I feel like I have that seared into my soul. Does that mean that I never justify, over-explain, accommodate? Absolutely not. But it is a fabulous reminder that you don't owe anyone your time, your life, your happiness, or your peace. And that's why I think boundary work is some of the most important work that we can do as people. Now, before we deep dive into that, I want to remind you all that I still have mini sessions available. If you haven't heard me talk about this yet, it's a complimentary coaching call that I offer. It's 30 minutes of straight coaching. You come with something specific that you would like help with, and we just get to work. Common topics that we cover are processing emotions, fear associated with cycles, relationships, and so many other things. But it's 30 minutes just for you. Now, if you want to learn more about working with me, we can talk about that after the 30 minutes, but there's no requirement to have that conversation at all. I like to think of it as kind of this twofold thing. One, you're getting help on something that you need right now. And two, you can get an idea of what it's like to coach with me or just be coached in general. Now, to schedule a mini session, there are a couple of ways. You can go to my website, www.ivfthiscoaching.com, and select work with me. Or you can either go to my Instagram or my Facebook bios, and there are links in there to schedule. Okay, so let's get back to boundaries. Now, I always think boundaries are an important topic to cover, but I have noticed a huge uptick in the cultural vernacular around boundaries and boundary settings over the last few years. Boundaries used to be like this weird amorphous thing that no one really talked about, or you only heard about it in a clinical setting, like if you were working with a mental health professional. But this topic has kind of exploded along with this idea of toxicity over the last 5 to 10 years. And I think a lot of people conflate the two. And in its truest sense, boundaries and boundary setting is really misunderstood. Boundaries come up in pretty much every aspect of your life, work, relationships, and of course, during our infertility journey, which is why boundary work is so very important, because when we learn boundary settings, it's not just a one-stop shop thing, right? You can apply it in multiple areas. So we're going to talk a little bit about what boundaries are, most importantly, what boundaries aren't, and how to effectively set them. And I'll give you a few examples kind of interwoven. So the first thing that I want to cover is that in order to effectively set and maintain boundaries, you've got to be in a good headspace. Taking care of yourself is the vast majority of boundary setting. And I would say like 75 to 90% of boundary settings starts with how you see and value yourself. If you still have a running narrative that you are a piece of garbage and that you deserve whatever you get, well, that's going to make boundary setting and maintaining very difficult. The remaining 25 to 10-ish% relates to what most people associate the term boundaries with. And that's typically like the conversation you have with people establishing boundaries, which is why taking care of yourself comes first. I think you'll find, and what I have found, is that when you do that to start, the less and less necessary those types of conversations are, because it just becomes something natural that you exude and a way that you show up in your relationships. So it's so crucial to take that first step and really start looking at how you think about yourself, talk to yourself, and value yourself. And as importantly, second, boundary setting is for you, not for someone else. The way most people think about it, and how a lot of quote unquote influencers talk about boundaries, they talk about it in the exact opposite way. They talk about it much more in the vein of trying to control another person's behavior than loving and protecting yourself, which is how I view boundary setting. The easiest description is that I'm not going to let you talk to me like that. This is actually a mechanism of control. We think it sounds like a boundary, right? And it almost makes logical sense. Like you can follow the logic to why that would make sense as it sounds like a boundary. But how are you not going to let someone do something? I'm assuming you're referring to another grown-ass adult, right? They have the right to do and say whatever they want. Now, invariably, when I talk about this example, I get the argument of, well, what if someone is mistreating me, harassing me, or verbally abusing me? Am I just supposed to let it happen? Am I just supposed to take it? And the answer is unequivocally no, not at all. That's not what I advocate for. So let's talk about a boundary misconception, like someone saying, I think I need to set a boundary because this person is driving me crazy. Now, I'm not going to say that it's wrong to decide that you need a boundary then. But what I want to add is it is up to you, that you don't have to be fed up to decide to set a boundary. And in fact, when clients are really upset and angry and frustrated with the person, we always begin with cleaning up those emotions. The feelings have to come first. Ideally, boundaries are not set from anger or angst or irritation or resentment. I'm not going to say never here. I try to stay away from those sort of absolutes, but there might be times when you just can't get out of that. I'm just saying. In many cases, it's very available to you and often way more effective for you to set a boundary from a more empowering emotion, because the emotion of fear, anger, resentment, frustration is disempowering and it doesn't feel very good. It's not most people's favorite way to feel. And when we set a boundary from those emotions, we're probably like 99% likely trying to control another person. So here's where I find it is the easiest to get to. Instead of, let's say, frustration or resentment, we can get to compassion or even just confusion. I always say the opposite of judgment, in my opinion, is compassion. Judgment says you shouldn't do that. Don't they know what people shouldn't do that? You shouldn't lie. You shouldn't say those things. You shouldn't ask those types of questions. You shouldn't give, things away. It really doesn't matter what the example is, but that is judgment. And it's not a very useful place to set a boundary from. The beautiful part about boundaries is that you always get a choice. So let's do a pretty common example. The chronically late friend. And I kind of look away sheepishly because I sometimes am that friend. Now, you might have a lot of thoughts about what lateness means. That it's disrespectful, it shows a lack of organization, laziness, or time management, or that they don't value your time, right? There are a lot of stories that we tell ourselves around lateness, which is fine. But those stories are always based in judgment, and judgment never feels good. And it typically only serves to exacerbate the anger or frustration, so there's no real net positive to judgment. It is a normal, natural human instinct to judge, right? It just doesn't serve us, right? You can just decide one day, I have a boundary that I wait this long for my friend, however long that is, 5 minutes, 10 minutes, 15 minutes, whatever. And then if they don't come, I don't wait around for them anymore. Or whatever boundary you want to set. Again, maybe you communicate to your friend, maybe you don't. Maybe you just go, you weren't there, so I left. I'm so sorry. I love you. I'm sad that you weren't there, but it's just what I do. I don't wait any longer than 20 minutes, let's say. It's totally up to you. Any longer than this amount of time. So you don't have to be angry to set a boundary. A boundary is just a decision that you make about what you will do to ensure that you are taken care of. That's it. What am I going to do? Because I can't control the people outside of me. So if someone behaves in a way that I don't care for, or they don't behave in a way that I would prefer they behave, what will I do that is legal and moral and ethical and feels like maybe it's in service to my highest self? That will allow me to still have as much as possible of what I want for myself in my life. That's it. That's a boundary. So let's get another example that I think most of us are incredibly familiar with. And it's the questions, are you pregnant yet? Or often it's other used counterpart after you have a child. So when are you going to have another one? I know. Just hearing those questions might make your blood boil. And there was a time that something like that would set my anger from 0 to 90 in a moment, right? Now, there is no right or wrong way to handle these types of invasive questions. There's a legal right and wrong, right? You shouldn't punch the person as much as you envision it, as much as you think about it, but there's not a right or wrong way to handle it. But in terms of boundary setting, that could look something like, you know what? I appreciate that you're curious, but this is not something that I want to talk about right now, right? So that's compassion. So confusion, I mentioned confusion earlier, was I'm not sure why that is so interesting to you. Like, why do you care so much about my reproductive system, my reproductive plan, or anything like that, right? That comes from confusion. There's not judgment. Like, I'm genuinely confused as to why someone I speak to twice a year is curious about that. And if it's a relative or a really good friend, you can throw in more qualifiers if you want. I appreciate that you care and that you're curious, but it's a really tender topic for me. And I would prefer it if we could talk about something else. Now, you might be thinking that's all well and good, Em, if the person respects your boundaries, but what if they keep prying, either in that same conversation or in future conversations? I want you to hear me loud and clear. You do not owe anyone your peace. Women traditionally are socialized to tolerate the discomfort of invasive questions or inappropriate comments for the sake of other people's comfort. And I call bullshit all day long. Now, I'm not saying that this isn't something you can't do. You always have the choice. What I'm inviting you to consider is that it is, in fact, a choice. The way we've been socialized, it doesn't really feel like a choice, but it is. So you set a boundary like, hey, that's not something I'm going to talk about right now. We can talk about something else. That's fine. And then they keep pressing. Then another boundary could be like, look, you can ask me all the questions or make any of the comments, but that will not change the fact that this is not something that I am comfortable talking about. If you continue to ask me, I'm going to go talk to someone else, or I'm just going to walk away. Right? I want you to see how different that is from people shouldn't ask me that. So much less judgment. There's so much less resentment. There's so much less anger. You're not going to walk away from a place of anger. You're going to walk away from a place of taking care of yourself. It's much more about how I, in that moment, am going to take care of myself, and much less about not allowing someone to do something, which by all accounts is useless because people are allowed to do whatever they want, even if it's not behavior that you find acceptable. Okay, so one of the biggest misconceptions around boundaries is that you have to be angry or emotional to set them, right? Misconception number 2 is that people should honor your boundary. Typically, people create boundaries and have this belief of, well, it's there, people need to respect it. But I hate to be the bearer of bad news because that rarely happens that way. So if you have set a boundary, then a lot of times my clients say, well, I set this boundary and they're not honoring it. Maybe they still show up late. Maybe they still ask the invasive questions or make the stupid comments, whatever the boundary is like. And I'm like, yeah, that's their habit. You should probably expect that people are at least some of the time going to do what they've always been doing. Hopefully, if we share our request with them and we do it from a place of confusion or compassion, like, I don't know why you do this. I'm a little confused by it, but this is what I'm going to do, right? Hopefully knowing that will influence them to try to monitor themselves. but we're not going to count on it. We're not going to 100% expect that. I certainly don't think you need to be angry or frustrated or disappointed if that doesn't happen. You just need to uphold your boundary. So I know it sounds strange. I know it might sound really strange that I say that I don't expect people are going to do what you want them to do. But I actually find this to be incredibly empowering. And I like to expect that they might do what I want them to do and they might not. And I'm going to choose how I get to feel in any one of those scenarios. Because I don't like to set myself up for frustration and anger and resentment and disappointment because the only person that is being punished when I feel that is me. I'm literally the only one that suffers. They don't suffer. They can't feel my anger, resentment, judgment. Only I get that. So when I expect that they might or might not, then I'm not taken off guard and I'm not super angry. And I'm just like, okay, I kind of thought this might happen. I hoped it wouldn't, but I knew it might. So this isn't shocking. This isn't like headline news. They tend to do this, and that's why I had to do the boundary work. So what do I do now? Yeah, I remove myself, just like I said I would. I have a plan for what I'm going to do. And I want you to expect that if you haven't been upholding that boundary, it's going to feel really weird when you start doing that. So your friend that's chronically 15, 20 minutes late, whatever, when you have planned meetups and you tell them, hey, I'll wait around for you for a few minutes, but after that, I will either start doing what we said we were going to do or I'm going to leave. And the first time you set that boundary it's going to feel super weird. Like, just be ready. They might be like, what? They might even be mad. They might be really mad. But listen, what's the alternative? You allow people to do what they want at your expense? And you're mad at you and you're mad at them? Or you take care of yourself and you honor yourself and you do your work to know that you don't have to be mad at them. Remember, you're going to be compassionate or at the very least confused. And it can be as simple as, I'm sorry, I love you. I don't want you to be mad. I hope you're not mad. But in the end, if they want to be mad, it's up to them. Are you with me? So let's go back. Misconception number 1 is that you've got to be angry or fed up to set a boundary. Number 2 is that other people should honor your boundary. And then number 3 was that I should be really mad if they don't honor it. See how I got kind of ahead of myself? But listen, you don't have to be. I promise you that other people, you guys, they have good reasons for what they do. Just like we have good reasons for what we do. And I really do think that everyone's doing the best that they can. It's just sometimes our best is really not that great. It's true. All of us do it. So that person doesn't know any better. They don't know how to do better, or just in that moment, they weren't capable of doing better. Or maybe they don't think that they're doing anything wrong in the first place. So we don't have to be mad, because if being mad controlled them, if it made us more influential in getting them to behave how we want to, I might be a fan, but I haven't found that to be the case. In fact, I often find it's quite the opposite. I found that it only pushes people further away and makes them more committed to their side. And we become more committed to our side, and we create even more drama and more problems, so you don't have to be mad. It can be something like, you're upset, you're mad, I completely understand, I love you. I'm not doing this to punish you, I'm doing this to take care of me. That can be what it sounds like. That can be what it looks like. And it's so much more fun. Not just fun though, right? These aren't like fun situations. That might not be the best word, but it's just more peaceful. So much more empowering to stay calm in a situation like this. Like, okay, let's talk about number 4. This one, are you ready? This is the 4th and final misconception about boundaries. The final misconception I want you to think about is that a lot of people think, well, it's just going to make my life so much easier to have boundaries. And I only laugh because I fell into this trap too. Be careful, because it will make your life better. It is more empowering, more mature, more in control of your own reality, the way you live, but it's not necessarily easier, especially in the beginning. In fact, it'll probably be harder. And I want you to know that, because when it feels hard, I hope that you'll hear me in your head and you'll go, yeah, Em told me this is going to be hard at first, and I'm not going to feel like it's making my life easier necessarily, because my brain's just going to go to, this is so hard. you know what? It's not a big deal. You should just say yes. You should just deal with it. You should just let the person be late. It's just uncomfortable. Your brain is going to try and talk you out of all of it. But I'm telling you that you might get relief in that moment, but it's the long-term pain of resentment and the lack of authenticity and the lack of control in your own life that is not worth it. Even though in some ways it will make your life harder in the beginning, it is 100% worth it. It's the discomfort of being empowered and taking responsibility for your emotions and your relationships and your well-being versus the discomfort of being a victim and resenting and blaming and trying to control other people. I gotta tell you, I would choose the former all day long. I would choose the discomfort of empowered, confident, driving my life versus the other. So it will feel harder in the beginning, and that's okay. You can do that. Come on in and let me coach you through it if you want. It'll be much easier if I can go through it with you and help you get set up. I talked about mini sessions at the beginning of this episode, and that's actually a perfect opportunity to do that during a mini session. Okay, that is what I have for you today, my friends. I hope you have a beautiful week, and I'll talk to you soon. Bye. Thank you for listening to this week's episode of IVF This. If you like what you've heard, click subscribe and follow to make sure you don't miss an episode. And if you want to learn more, head over to www.ivfthiscoaching.com to learn how to work together.